What do you need to let go of to shine at the end of June? There's something Virgo feels and rarely manages to explain to an outsider. It's not sadness. It's not anxiety, at least not the kind people recognize. It's a kind of constant internal pressure, as if you're always on the verge of something, as if the world around you could crumble if you stop holding on. And you do hold on. You hold on to work, you hold on to relationships, you hold on to other people's routines. You hold on to the silence that covers things no one wants to name. On the outside, everything is in order. On the inside, there's an endless inventory of unresolved issues that you carry with the same discreet discipline you've carried throughout your life. But there's one thing nobody told you about this burden. It has an expiration date. And that date has arrived. I need to ask you a question before we begin. A question you'll probably never hear in an astrology video because it's too direct. How many things are you carrying right now that are no longer yours? I'm not talking about objects. I'm talking about narratives, about relationships you maintain out of habit, not choice, about versions of yourself you perform in certain environments because people expect them, even if that performance cost you energy you no longer have, about promises you made to yourself years ago and never kept, but also never officially cancelled. They remain there, in line, silently demanding their fulfillment. If any of this sounds familiar, stay that way, because what I'm about to explain isn't about your future. It's about what's blocking your future. And for Virgo, at this specific end of June, there's a very precise astrological reason for this blockage, and a very specific window to undo it. 7 years. That's how long a Saturnian cycle lasts. And you're right at the turning point. Stay here. It's worth every second. This end of June is not a month like any other for Virgo. I'm not talking about decorative astrology, those vague phrases that could apply to any sign in any week of the year. I'm talking about something you'll recognize immediately when you understand the mechanism behind what's happening to you now. Because, you know, deep down, that something needs to change. You just don't know exactly what yet. That's what we're going to find out together. Virgo is the sign of discernment, analysis, and usefulness, but there's a shadow side to this competence that's rarely discussed. The tendency to hold on to things, not objects, emotions. Virgo holds on to resentments with surgical precision. They remember exactly the day, the hour, the phrase that was said the wrong way. They hold on to unappreciated efforts with the mental tally updated with each new episode. They hold on to love given without reciprocity, not with explicit bitterness, but with that characteristic restraint that makes people around you think you're fine, when in reality you're cataloging each emotional debt in an internal drawer that only you know. And you know what's most curious? Virgos do this thinking they're being responsible, mature, that keeping things to themselves is a way of not burdening others, of not being difficult, of not seeming needy. But there's a cost that doesn't appear immediately. This accumulation weighs you down. It occupies space that should be free for the new. It creates a layer of resistance between who you are and who you could be. And when the end of a 7-year cycle arrives, like the one we are experiencing now, this accumulation becomes unsustainable. The universe no longer accepts procrastination. Why 7 years? It may seem like a coincidence that the number 7 appears in virtually every transformative system humanity has ever developed. 7 days of the week, 7 musical notes, 7 chakras, 7 years of bad luck when a mirror breaks. But it's not a coincidence, it's astronomy. Saturn, the planet of boundaries and maturity, takes approximately 7 years to complete a quarter of its full 29.5-year orbital cycle. This creates specific moments in anyone's life when reality presents a reckoning. Not punitive, just inevitable. At these pivotal points, the universe is neither punishing nor rewarding you. It is simply presenting you with the result of what you have sown. If you have spent the last 7 years building with authenticity, this is a time of harvest. If you have spent this period sustaining structures that no longer made sense, relationships out of obligation, jobs out of fear, versions of yourself that no longer fit, this is a time of discarding, not of failure, of strategic cleansing. For Virgo specifically, this shift has a particular quality because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, analysis, and the mind. And what Saturn is asking now is not that you work more, organize more, or analyze more. What it's asking is that you stop using your intelligence as a hiding place. What does Saturn demand of Virgo? Saturn has a complicated relationship with Virgo. On the one hand, Virgo is naturally Saturnian, disciplined, methodical, duty-oriented. On the other hand, precisely because of this, Saturn knows that Virgo can use these virtues as an escape mechanism. Do you work a lot? Yes, but sometimes work is an excuse not to feel. Are you extremely responsible? Absolutely. But sometimes, responsibility is armor that prevents someone from getting close enough to truly see you. What Saturn demands of Virgo in this cycle is not more effort, it's authenticity. And this, paradoxically, is what scares those born under this sign the most. Because being authentic means giving up control over how you will be perceived. It means saying, I don't know when you don't know, I need to when you need to, I was wrong when you were wrong, without immediately offering a solution that redirects attention from the mistake to competence. Saturn will no longer accept the convenient version of Virgo. It wants the true version. And if you don't give it willingly, it will create circumstances that make the mask unsustainable. Not because it's cruel, but because cycles don't wait for convenience. There's something people don't understand about Virgo's perfectionism. They think it's ambition, that it's demanding quality, and it is, but it's not just that. Virgo's perfectionism, in its darker version, is a protective mechanism. If I do everything perfectly, no one will have a reason to criticize me. If I don't make mistakes, no one will leave. If I'm indispensable, I'll be loved. It's flawless logic. And it's completely devastating. Because what happens in practice is this. The more perfect Virgo tries to be, the more invisible she becomes. She doesn't show the draft, only the final result. She doesn't show the doubt, only the solution. She doesn't show the need, only the availability. And the people around her learn to see only the competent surface, which is impressive, but it's not intimacy. It's not real connection. It's admiration from a distance. And deep down, what Virgo wants most is not to be admired, it's to be known. It's to be seen in the messy process, in the uncertainty, on the day when nothing made sense, and yet she did it anyway. This Virgo, the human, imperfect, developing Virgo, is what needs to emerge in the next cycle. And for that to happen, the overly perfect Virgo needs to be partially let go. Is there something you know you need to let go of, but haven't been able to yet? A relationship that's become more of a habit than a love story. A version of yourself you still perform because people expect it. A narrative about who you should be that was written by someone who left your life years ago. If this resonated with you, write it in the comments. It doesn't need to be a long text. It can be a single word. It can be yes. It can be the name of something you haven't yet been able to name aloud. Every person who comments here is saying to the universe, I am ready to let go. And that has real weight. It's part of the turning point. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose isn't about distrusting everyone. It's about something much more precise than that. How Virgo can develop the ability to see the world for what it truly is, without losing the sensitivity that makes you who you are. Because the problem was never your generosity. The problem was using your own integrity as a lens to read others. And there's a huge difference between the two. You are now in a moment of recognition. Something within you has just named a pattern that has always been there, but never had a form. This is the exact moment. Not tomorrow, not when you have processed everything now. Because when the perception is still alive, still fresh, it has the power to change something real. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. The three narratives must die. There are three stories that Virgo tells about itself. Stories so old they seem like facts. Stories that seem part of its personality, when in reality they are scars of adaptation. And it is precisely these three stories that the universe is asking you to revisit now. The first one, I need to be useful to deserve love. This started way back, maybe in childhood, maybe in some relationship that shaped what you believe about how affection works. You learned that when you do things, when you solve problems, when you care, people stay around. And then you became increasingly efficient at caring and less skilled at simply existing without a purpose. The problem is that when you stop being useful, when you get sick, when you need something, when you can't deliver, fear paralyzes you. Will they stay? This fear needs to be faced now, because real love doesn't have a service charge. The second, to control, is to protect. Virgo has a very specific relationship with control. It's not tyranny, it's rationalized anxiety. If I plan everything, nothing will surprise me negatively. If I anticipate all possible scenarios, I'll be prepared for anything. And in a way, that works. But there's a cost. Spontaneity disappears. The capacity to be pleasantly surprised also diminishes, and life becomes increasingly safe and less alive. The third, asking for help is a sign of weakness. This is perhaps the most difficult. Virgo was built around self-sufficiency. You solve problems. You don't overburden. You endure. And there's a genuine beauty in that. But there's also an isolation that no one sees from the outside. Because a Virgo who never asks for help never receives help, and then resents not having been helped when they needed it. The cycle closes in on itself, and loneliness settles in silently within a completely busy schedule. These three narratives are not who you are. They are who you learned to be in order to survive, and survival was necessary. But the next cycle doesn't ask for survival, it asks for flourishing. When Virgo finally lets go of what is no longer theirs, something specific happens that surprises them. It's not immediate relief, it's clarity. Like when you clean the lens of a pair of glasses that have been foggy for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to see clearly. Suddenly, you begin to realize which relationships in your life exist because they are good for you, and which exist because you're afraid of what will happen if they end. These are completely different things, and Virgo, with their analytical intelligence, knows when to stop using that intelligence to convince themselves that everything is fine when it's not. The body changes, and that's not a metaphor. Virgo is the sign that most somatizes unresolved conflicts. The tensions you don't express go to your stomach, your lower back, your skin, your digestion. It's no coincidence that Virgo is associated with the digestive system. The sign that digests life also digests what it can't process emotionally in the form of physical symptoms. When the emotional state reorganizes, the body responds, not overnight, but with a consistency you'll notice. Work takes on a new meaning. Not because you end up working less, Virgos almost never work less, but because the effort starts coming from a different place. There's no need for approval. Don't be afraid of being discarded if you don't perform. It's a conscious choice. It's love for what you do. And the difference between effort stemming from fear and effort stemming from choice is immeasurable in terms of quality of life. I want you to do something right now. Something small, but with real symbolic weight. Think of one specific thing you know you need to let go of in this cycle. It doesn't have to be the most important thing. It can be small. An expectation, a conversation you've avoided having, a version of yourself that you still perform in certain contexts, but that no longer reflects who you truly are. Name it here in the comments. Just write this: I'm letting go of jams. Complete the sentence. This isn't some decorative spiritual exercise. It's an act of commitment to yourself. And when you put it into words, you activate a different part of your brain. You go from thinking about letting go to actually processing the act of letting go. I'll stay here. You're not doing this alone. This late June period has an astrological configuration that isn't generic for everyone. For Virgo specifically, the active transits create what astrologers call a window of reorganization, a period in which the universe temporarily lowers its resistance to what needs to change. It's not that everything becomes easy, it's that the cost of remaining in the same place becomes more visible than the cost of moving. Mercury, your ruling planet, enters a sector of the chart that relates to closure and synthesis. This activates an inward-focused analytical capacity within you, not focused on work, not on other people's problems, but on your own patterns. It's as if the magnifying glass you use all the time is pointing in the right direction for the first time in a long time. At the same time, there is pressure coming from the relationship sector that invites Virgo to renegotiate what they accept in their connections. Not aggressively. Virgo doesn't do things aggressively. But with that precise clarity that is their greatest strength, when you stop using it to justify what doesn't work and start using it to make decisions that need to be made. This window of opportunity lasts for weeks, not months. Take advantage of it. There's something that needs to be said clearly, because it's rarely said to Virgos. Hiding your brilliance isn't humility. It's depressing. When you downplay your intelligence to avoid seeming arrogant, you're depriving those around you of something rare. When you stay in the background because you don't want to be the center of attention, you're wasting a perspective that no one else has. When you give 70% to avoid overexposing yourself, you're contributing to a collective mediocrity that doesn't need you as an accomplice. A virgin who shines is not a virgin who shows off. She is a virgin who stops diminishing herself to fit into the space others have left. She is a virgin who speaks when she has something to say, even if her voice trembles, who presents the idea before it is perfect, because perfection doesn't arrive before the presentation, it arrives through it. Who accepts recognition without immediately shifting the credit to someone else, or to luck, or to circumstances. The next 7-year cycle will demand something from Virgo that you didn't ask for, didn't plan for, and probably don't think you deserve yet. Visibility, not fame, not empty protagonism, but the honest exposure of who you truly are, with your precise analyses, your profound sensitivity, your ability to transform chaos into order in ways that the people around you don't even realize they need to until you do it. That's the brilliance of Virgo, and it belongs to the world, not just to your diary. Closing, the next cycle begins now. You've made it this far. That means something. Not everyone makes it to the end. Not because the content is long, it's because reaching the end of content that addresses what needs to be let go means that some part of you is ready for the conversation. That the weight you carry has become heavy enough for you to stop and look at it honestly. The next cycle doesn't begin when you're sure. It doesn't begin when you're ready. It doesn't begin when the moment is perfect. And you, Virgo, know better than anyone that the perfect moment never arrives because you always find one more thing to adjust before taking the step. It begins when you decide that the weight of what you carry is greater than the fear of what comes next. That's the point, and that point is now. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be an elaborate ritual, a perfect plan B, or an updated list of pros and cons. It can be silent. It can be small. It can be you, alone, looking at what you know needs to go and saying internally, enough is enough. The universe listens to this kind of decision, not because it's magic, but because decisions change behavior. Behavior changes circumstances, and circumstances change life. P for this, I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose isn't about distrusting everyone. It's about something much more precise than that. How Virgo can develop the ability to see the world for what it truly is, without losing the sensitivity that makes you who you are. And there's a huge difference between the two. This is the exact moment. Not tomorrow, not when you've processed everything, now. Because when the perception is still alive, still fresh, it has the power to change something real. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Virgo, you were built to last, to endure, to analyze, to sustain. But the brilliance that awaits you on the other side of this cycle doesn't need resistance. It needs space. And space only appears when you let go of what should have already gone. This is the end of your June. This is your turning point. You already know what to do.